Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of LA Legal. I'm Liana. I'm joined by Neama. And today we have a very special guest all the way from Missouri, Paige. Please introduce yourself and let our viewers know what you do. And we'll get started.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Paige Sparks. I'm a lawyer based out of St. Louis, Missouri. I do mostly plaintiff employment law, so like sex discrimination, retaliation, which is why I'm so excited for your topic today.
Well, considering you chose it yourself, of course you're excited. Just kidding.
It's right
I'm
in
super
my
excited
wheelhouse.
to hear your thoughts on this, actually. So I'm going to do a very brief intro and let you take it away. Robert De Niro and his former assistant, Graham Chase Robinson, faced off in Manhattan federal court over dueling misconduct claims. She claimed that Robert De Niro subjected her to years of gender discrimination and harassment, while he counterclaimed, alleging financial misconduct, specifically misuse of company frequent flyer miles and binge watching Netflix while on the job. I mean, sounds like a cushy
Who doesn't
job.
do that?
You can, right? I mean, truth be told, I have things in the background usually, so maybe I should turn it down a little while I'm working because his office is right next door.
Well, look, the employers always have an excuse, right? As far as they're always going to come up with some maybe pretextual reason. We do employment too as to why they terminate the employee. So I'm not surprised De Niro's lawyers had something. They also counterclaimed, right, saying that Graham stole
85K worth of miles.
yeah, a lot of miles, you know. So there was a counterclaim. Obviously, Paige came pretty strong, was asking for more than $12 million for lost wages, emotional distress. But some of the allegations, they were pretty creepy, Liana. Let's get into some of them. I don't know, Paige. I don't know how they do things in Missouri, but certainly in California, you can't be doing this to your female employees.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest, Missouri is a little less restrictive on that. Like, I feel like you guys have a different playing field over in California for things like that. I was shocked by the facts of this case, primarily because didn't she quit? She quit before, and then they tried to negotiate something that didn't work out. That was kind of eye-opening to me because it's so hard to bring a case in Missouri anyway for someone that quits. I was shocked.
So in California, whenever there's gender discrimination or harassment, especially of a sexual nature, we can argue constructive termination. Like no reasonable person, especially a young woman, would want to work in that environment or should work in that environment. And you still can pursue your wrongful termination damages for emotional distress, even if you quit here in California.
Oh, I see. We need those California laws in Missouri because we don't have as favorable. Our constructive termination laws like have to be, your life is in threat. You're threatened or something like that in order to be for us. But I was shocked that she still brought a case because she quit first, but that makes a lot of sense, it being like California law. Some of the allegations that she put in there. Also, I didn't see any like smoking gun. Did you guys? I just saw a lot of kind of like general sexist duties I think she was assigned to do. But there was no like sexual assault or something that normally we see, but it's like something sexy with this kind of case.
Yeah, I think like if it wasn't Robert De Niro, probably the case wouldn't have gone to trial. But I think he really took a pretty aggressive approach. Look, sometimes it's personal. You're working with someone all the time. He was at trial. He was very upset. He was yelling out at her. I mean, this was someone that I assume he was very close to up until he got a new girlfriend.
She was his personal assistant for a very long time, and yeah, she was promoted later. But I agree. I think it was really interesting because there was nothing like sexual, right? I mean, when you think sexual assault or discrimination and something like this, right, especially involving a celebrity, you're thinking, wow, what did he do? And I think it was like he asked her to like scratch his back, so nothing sort of like run of the mill type thing that you
that's pretty creepy in my opinion.
No, 100%.
Asking a young female employee, a subordinate, to scratch your back, really touch you in any way. That's pretty,
No, 100%. I just think it's not something that you really sort of think of when you think like.
Yeah, like it's not traditional sex discrimination. Yeah, discrimination. That's what I would think too. Or like, did you hear the clip from him on the stand when they said they got him to agree finally that he asked her to scratch the back, and he was like, "Fine, you got me. I asked her twice." Did you see that?
Yeah, he admitted to it twice. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too because some of the other duties that he asked her to do, I think, were like changing his sheets or like household kind of like domestic kind of duties, which normally, at least in Missouri, your job description can change at any time. So if you're this like top tier paid executive on its face, I didn't see anything wrong with that. So I was shocked by the verdict. Honestly, I was, because I'm like, I could see how they would assign duties, but I guess they got him in that bucket of the domestic and sex discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't asking male employees to do the same thing.
Yeah, and he's calling her a bitch, right?
Yeah.
That's something.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't see that.
Yeah. He was, and then he was, just the way he was talking in her presence. There's like legitimate claims here. But, to your point, I actually thought that it was interesting because she, again, I don't know what he hired her to do, right? I mean, there's people who hire personal assistants to run errands. I'm sure maybe changing your sheets is part of that. But I thought it was like a weird thing to ask your executive director of like what her title, I don't know what her exact title was, but she was like the executive director of like finance or something. So it's just a weird thing to be asking of a female employee who's a high up executive to be changing your like bed sheets. And I think that's where her claim comes from, that, yeah, he gave me this promotion, but really I was still treated like his personal assistant.
Well, in the cases in New York is obviously a pretty liberal state like California. I'm sure the laws are very employee friendly. And the jurors did, and Paige talked about the verdict a little bit. It was a split verdict, right? She did get paid some of what she asked for, a small percentage, but not everything. But I think we need to talk about Tiffany Chen and her role in all this, because at least the argument was De Niro gets a new girlfriend. The girlfriend doesn't like the close relationship with the executive assistant and says she's got to go. And I think it's relevant, not just the evidence in the case, because really De Niro wasn't found to be liable, but Tiffany was as an agent of De Niro's corporation. Yeah. So I think the jurors thought, hey, Tiffany's at fault, but De Niro's not.
It was really surprising to hear that they allowed them to make the argument that the girlfriend was an agent of De Niro, because didn't she get that to happen to an assistant before then too? She didn't like, so she got them fired. I'm sure they probably alleged some kind of like pattern and practice behind that, or showed the control that his significant others would have over him. But I was surprised that she was considered an agent. She must have wielded some like pretty big control. Reading the statement, she said, we're not nice toward the plaintiff either. She tried to kind of spin things to make it sound like she would come in and trim their bushes and hedges without permission, or be territorial over De Niro. And then she said she wasn't right and she had to go. But there were no specific examples of that. I could see how they made that argument, and that was a huge win as plaintiff counsel if you can get someone to be an agent.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're lawyers and we're nerding out here a little bit, but for the non-lawyers who are watching, so for a corporation to be liable, I mean, corporations, there's the legal fiction, right? It's its own entity, but it really acts through its officers, its directors, its agents, right? So now you have someone who's De Niro's girlfriend, who actually isn't an employee of De Niro's corporation. But because she's calling the shots, apparently the judge says, well, I'm going to hold the corporation responsible for Tiffany Chen's actions. So if she terminated Graham Robinson, then De Niro's corporation, you're responsible for those actions. And ultimately, that's the direction the jury went in. They found the termination to be unlawful, but they thought that De Niro himself didn't do anything wrong, but the corporation did, which means that the jurors didn't like Tiffany's actions towards Graham.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, if somebody's making the shots on your behalf or on behalf of your company, then it doesn't matter if they're a direct employee, right?
It doesn't.
I think it makes sense.
So it's a creative argument. I agree with Paige, by plaintiff's counsel, and the judge bought it.
That was a huge win for it, because it's like that must be like a very balancing test of when does the agent argument stop? That's kind of scary. That should be scary for defense counsel, because what if your mom has a lot of influence over you and what your business decisions are? Or what if your brother does that you look up to? Like, that's a really hard argument to make, and that was a huge win for them, I think.
I think so.
Keep your spouses away from your business is what.
Well, yeah, and I know De Niro's lawyers said they're going to appeal, and on appeal, I think this is going to be one of their big arguments, because obviously if that agency argument is reversed, it goes up to the Second Circuit, then guess what? This whole case goes away, because maybe you can get a judgment against Tiffany directly, maybe for any of the emotional distress, but you can't get it for wrongful termination.
Well, what do you guys think about the money award? The 1.3, 2 or 3 that I think she owed. 1.3, yeah. Yeah,
so my takeaway was this. The jurors thought De Niro didn't do anything wrong. The jurors thought that Graham didn't steal the frequent flyer miles or the points or whatever, Amex points or whatever De Niro was getting. But they thought the termination was unlawful. And if you kind of do the calculations, I think she was making what? A little over $300 a year, which is a lot of money for an assistant, obviously. They said, listen, we're going to pay her for the 4 years that she's, director. We're going to pay her for the 4 years that she's been out of work. So we're not going to give it any sort of future, lost income, lost earning capacity, but we're going to make sure that she's made whole for these 4 years she's been out of a job litigating this whole case.
Right. I agree. I think that's what the 1.2 was, or 1.3 was for. It was those 4 years because she claimed she was so traumatized and, unable to find jobs. I actually read somewhere that she had applied to over 600 positions and just never got the job. So, I think that's what that jury award was for. What do you think?
And they didn't deliberate very long. I think I agree with your take. Is he didn't seem like there was, like I said before, there was no smoking gun or like traditional sex harassment or discrimination. And so maybe they were kind of sympathetic to him and put more of the liability on his girlfriend. But I have to wonder if his conduct during trial kind of rubbed the jury the wrong way, because normally juries do not like it when the accused is still making the victim be a victim in the courtroom, saying things like, shame on you for bringing this case, or like, he was the first one to sue too. I thought that was kind of abnormal. It's not strange that we see companies go after a former employee for things they think they took, but it looked to me like they were trying to leverage her to waive her claims to not pursue it. So I think the jury kind of read between the lines and didn't like the conduct, is just my guess for part of the reason why, because there was no smoking gun.
Yeah, Paige, I agree. I mean, I think jurors don't like those types of outbursts in court. We're seeing them more and more. I won't say what kind of case, because Say it. No. Liana doesn't like it when I get political, so I'm not going to say it.
So just so Paige knows, there are two topics that keep just somehow, some way circling back at every single episode. One of them is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Yeah. And who's the other one?
Donald Trump, of course. Our favorite litigant, because he's getting into so much civil and criminal trouble. It just keeps us going all day, every day.
You know what I just realized right now? And I'm glad this is being recorded. Neama loves Trump so much that you've even stopped mentioning Harvard.
Oh, wow.
And that's huge for you. I haven't heard Harvard in the past few episodes.
Yeah,
because he usually leads with that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think jurors don't like that, right? People that are out of control in the courtroom. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right, Paige. I don't think they like that. I don't think they like the fact that, like I said, look, you terminate your employee, then you sue them, right? And look, we do it all the time, maybe because we're here in LA. There's always going to be a lawyer that's going to sue a celebrity. We have no problem doing so. So if you're De Niro, I mean, they get sued all the time. So if you're representing De Niro, you got to be a little bit smarter, right? Is it really worth? And again, I don't know, maybe he's like platinum, extra platinum miles, and now poor De Niro's sitting in coach, or he's economy, he's the last aboard. But I don't think it's worth it to go after one of your former employees, especially when you might have some exposure and they may have a claim against you, because guess what? As soon as you file against them, they're going to lawyer up, and the lawyer's going to say, well, I can defend this case, but maybe I can cross-complain and make some money here.
Right. I agree with you 100%.
I totally agree. I think that was a really bad move on De Niro's part to start the claim, because it just, not only does that, like, you're asking for it to start the claim, because now she's got to defend herself and then also put her counterclaims to front. But we don't normally see that if there's not like a company where trade secrets are being exposed, or like monumental damage that makes it worth it for a company to go after an employee like that. So I was surprised that he sued her first for the airline points or something like that. I was really surprised.
Watching Netflix. I'm not letting that one go. It's just, to me, it's like, really, you're going to sue someone for that? She's gone. Why?
Yeah, everyone on the jury is like, I do this all day working remotely.
I'm sure people that are watching that are Netflixing all day, every day. But yeah, that's what kind of goes back to our original point. I think there was something personal going on here.
Yeah.
You can't have that close relationship with someone that you're working with, and then you got a third wheel type situation coming in. They don't like the person. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of emotions. Just basically Tiffany's text messages, the way the termination with Graham was handled, really kind of poor form. And I think this was someone that was an employee for many, many years. And I don't think the jurors liked how she was treated, was the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And I like that she didn't come off as like a disgruntled employee, because, she'd been gone for how many years before this thing even came up with Robert De Niro's initial filing. So it's not like, she quit and she fired off this lawsuit, right? which is usually what you see. This is just more of like, okay, you're going to come at me. Here we go. Let's play
like
ball.
she had to respond. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I loved hearing about her post verdict actions as well, because this is what I think is hardest for plaintiffs, especially when they win, is to not act like they won the lottery, because we don't want any issue for appeal, right? We had a case a couple years ago in Missouri where the plaintiff got way too excited and a juror reported their own misconduct because they thought they awarded too much. So I loved reading about her conduct afterward, that she was very humble through the whole process. She just hugged her lawyers. She didn't even make a statement on the court steps, and she left. I think that was like, goes to show, like what you just said, her whole theme throughout the whole trial is she wasn't disgruntled. She was responding and just wanting to get what was hers.
I agree. I think she was very gracious in victory. Her lawyers put out some statement saying that they were happy with the result. Obviously, De Niro claimed victory as well because there was no liability on him, and the claims against him personally were dismissed. But ultimately, I do think it was a victory for Graham, especially when it was De Niro who first made a federal case out of it and then was unable to substantiate
and then his claim was dismissed. I think that would be so validating. Could you imagine? You're like, you started it and they dismissed your claim.
Yeah.
Okay. So victory. Wow. Victory all around for her. Any final thoughts, Neama?
Yeah, my final thoughts are mistake by De Niro. You know, you're a celebrity. Rise above it. You got plenty of money. Let the little things go, you know. He's never struck me as someone that's been particularly litigious. He's been very successful, obviously, in Hollywood, the entertainment industry. He's got a lot of businesses that he's done well with. Let your assistant go.
It's just shocking. That's my final thought, that this whole thing kind of unraveled over literally nothing. So you live and you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, for mine being from Missouri, which some people here call Missouri, by the way, like, again, we're a little different laws, but I was shocked that this was a case because, to be honest, like you had mentioned, if this was not a celebrity matter, would he have been sued? Probably not. Like, if this case just came to me through the week, I'd be like, okay, what else happened? But I think it's a very good milestone. First, on the agent law, that they got the girlfriend to be an agent, and then also that we don't need something that's a smoking gun. These kind of sex generalized stereotypes of doing the domestic duties can be enough. I think that's really good. It could be motivational to someone who's considering pursuing a claim like this. Like, you don't have to be molested to have a claim. You can have all these other things happen as well.
Yeah, and I would just kind of add that, maybe as the only guy here, if you're an old dude, you got to be careful how you treat younger
your own
females.
back.
Yeah, no, seriously. Get a back scratcher.
Get a back scratcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Brookstone if you don't want a manual one. Just figure it out, you know. You got to just, it's a new era, and maybe De Niro grew up in a different time, but I don't think you can do that, at least not anymore.
Yeah.
Do better.
You shouldn't
Yes,
do
I
that.
agree.
Right. Do better. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Paige. This was lovely. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time on LA Late.
Well, and then Paige, before we let her go,
That's right. Your
please
famous
let
line.
everyone know where they can find you on social media and elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. So I'm on social media on TikTok as Lawyer Paige. I was so early to the game. That's only my name is Lawyer Paige on there. And then on Instagram, I'm _Paige Sparks. That's where I share kind of like a mix of personal and legal stuff. So buyer beware if you look at my stories. That's all I'll say. You never know what you're going to get.
Well, you're huge on both. Definitely check her out, especially if you have any kind of employment questions. And we're going to send any of our Missouri cases your way as well, but not Montana.
Well, yeah, I don't know anything in Montana. They just changed. They're not at will, so I don't know anything about Montana.
But Missouri, we got you. And congratulations on your Chiefs as well.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.